Welcome back, Clubbers, to episode 4 of our Aulani series. In this episode, we are going to talk about everybody's favorite thing, dining and shopping.
And there's a lot of dining on property, and from table service to lounges to quick service. And so this is also something that I think, when I went to Aulani, you read about all of like the different offerings, but there are so many great options for dining there. So this is I think will be really helpful because I kind of went in blind. I knew the table service and I knew what I wanted reservations for, but I showed up and was like, wow, like there are so many different options for me to eat here, which is a good problem to have. But we hope that this is informative for you and that you enjoy it.
And we also don't just stick to Aulani with this episode. There's some great dining options all around Oahu, even as close as across the street from Aulani. So bring your appetites. Let's talk about dining at Aulani, because dining at Aulani really knocks it out of the park, in my opinion. Even the quick service, the Ulu Cafe that's down near the pool, had some really great sandwich and flatbread options. Affordable, yes, it's still Disney prices, but it was excellent food.
Yeah, I mean, my one regret is that when we were there, Ama closed for COVID and it had not yet reopened.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to experience that. And I have to be honest, we didn't really get any food from the Ulu Cafe. We got food when we were at the resort. We dined at Makahiki. We did the character breakfast and we did dinner there. And dinner, I almost canceled because in doing all of my research on where to dine on the island, Makahiki kind of got like okay reviews for dinner. And we had been dining out a lot. It was the last night. And I kind of felt like, you know what? I'm just going to cancel it. But my daughter convinced me to keep the reservation. And I enjoyed our dinner there so much. I was so impressed by it. And the breakfast there was great because it infused some of the Hawaiian culture into the food there. And it was really fun to see, Mickey and Minnie and their Hawaiian gear, but also the lounges there all had great food. And that's where throughout the day, that's where we got the bulk of our food was from the lounges. They had great sushi at the Olelo room, which is the Olelo room is kind of in the main building, looking out over the pool area and the lazy river area. They have live entertainment every night, and we got sushi there, and it was delicious sushi, and just a great atmosphere. That is a place that they don't take reservations, so you walk up and you put your name on a list. So it kind of behooves you to get there a little bit early, unless you're okay with waiting. And then we also, Off the Hook was the other one where they had these like poke nachos or something that were really delicious. And I discovered my favorite cocktail ever there, which was a kind of like a combination of a pina colada and a mojito. It was delicious. And and yeah, so like the food, what was so wonderful about it was like not just the food wasn't just good, but I'm sitting outside overlooking the lagoon, eating delicious like tuna nachos. I remember it was our first night there, and I had that cocktail and I had those tuna nachos, and I'm looking over the lagoon, and it just took my breath away. The whole experience was just so magnificent. And the food, yeah, to your point, the food was really good.
Yeah, well, and speaking of Off the Hook, for sure on the weekends, because that's when we were there. I don't know how often they do it midweek, but every night on the weekends there's live music at Off the Hook, which just kind of drives home that Hawaiian. It's usually a local artist, acoustic guitar and a microphone, but it is so much fun to just sit there, enjoy the ambiance, and listen to that music. And and then we were just talking about like the main restaurants, but even by the pool, like the Shave Ice Shack and Mama's Snack Shop, that's like your chicken tenders, and like it's just like being at Disney. You are at Disney. There's always something creative to eat. The Shave Ice is the best. You have to do it with the condensed milk, or you're doing it wrong. They come out Mickey shaped, and it's just all right there in the pool area, or accessible from the pool area. Nothing's a very far journey from anywhere at Aulani.
Yeah, you haven't had a Dole Whip unless you've had one at Aulani.
It's true.
with a palm tree sticking out of it.
Yep. And you can get that adult or child version, with alcohol or without, if that's your jam. So.
Yeah.
But even, just not even just on the resort, across the street is that marketplace with Monkey Pod, which fantastic food. There's a few other places over there that we kind of walked past but didn't experience, but there's a lot over there. There's an ABC store, which if you know anything about Hawaii, they're like 7-Elevens over here. They're on every corner, anything you want at the ABC store.
Yeah. A word about Monkey Pod. I would recommend going there for happy hour.
Yes.
The Mai Tais are absolutely amazing. They make this like passion fruit foam that they put on top of it. They're absolutely delicious. I had tuna tacos there. You're probably sensing a theme. I enjoy seafood. But those were delicious. And the ABC store was great because, Aulani, the drinks are expensive. You can go across the street and you can grab some, they sell alcohol. So I was able to get some, and they sell singles. So I could get a couple of like single beers so that I was able to taste different beers from the different breweries that were on the island or of the other islands, and get them for a fraction of the cost of a drink at Aulani. And so I did that. There's also an ice cream place across the street I think it's called Black Sheep, which had delicious homemade ice cream, absolutely delicious. And there's an Island Vintage Coffee, I think is the name of the place, that's right next to the ice cream place. And this is all in the same shopping center where Monkey Pod and the ABC store are. That made delicious coffee because I like Joffrey's coffee. I don't love it, and the Aulani coffee is Joffrey's. So I got the Aulani blend that they had a couple of the mornings, but it was also nice to be able to go across the street and get coffee from that local coffee shop. And there's also a Starbucks over there if you're a Starbucks person. So there are plenty of options to get coffee. And then a little bit further down the road is the Colina Golf Club. So if you're a golfer, you can golf at that golf course. But there's also at the golf club there's a Roy's, and Roy's is a restaurant chain that's indigenous to exclusive to Hawaii. I think there might be some on the West Coast, right? But they started Roy Yamaguchi. He's a chef that is from Hawaii. And so there's a Roy's at the Colina Golf Club.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and then obviously, it's Hawaii and there's plenty of great food to be had, even in the touristy areas. Like Waikiki has some great restaurants, the North Shore has some great restaurants. My advice is just to do some research and find out what it is that you want to look for, and you'll find it there. We had some of the best meals I've ever had in my life on Waikiki, if you can stand all the people.
I was going to say, I would be remiss if I did not mention Mina's Fish House at the Four Seasons, which is again right next door to Aulani. That was my favorite meal on the entire island. Just the freshest seafood. I mean, it's overlooking the same laguna that the same lagoon that Aulani is, but it's kind of elevated, so your view is a little bit different. It was outstanding. It was And the fact that it was footsteps away from Aulani just made it even more spectacular. But I loved that meal. And funnily, I got a facial at the spa, and my facial technician told me that, and she was a woman who was originally from Japan, who came to Hawaii, and she told me that the best place to get poke on the entire island was at this place in Honolulu that was basically an indoor flea market. Um, and the name of the place, it was a stall inside this flea market called Ocean Taste, and she was correct. It was the best poke because it was the most delicious sushi rice that I've ever had in my entire life. And so we grabbed that, and then we walked over to the Ala Moana Beach Park and sat at a picnic table and ate it there. And so, to your point, it's you'll be able to find really delicious places. Like, we stopped into a Filipino takeout place that had excellent food and brought it to a beach to eat there. So just do your research on what you like, and you're going to find find a place that you could take your food and sit on a beach and have the most scenic meal for not very for a very affordable price, if you're looking to eat on a budget.
While we're still talking about dining, let's go ahead and cover the Kawa'a Luau that is done at Aulani nightly. Dinner is included in your show, and it's probably, I've been to, I don't know, half a dozen luau's in Hawaii, and I rank this one near the very top. Like, it is such a Hawaiian Disney experience that it's hard to top that anywhere else.
Yeah, the thing that I loved about the luau, and as I mentioned when we were talking about, walking into the resort and walking into a story, is that the luau is actually the spoken version of the story. And so the luau, a lot of people, when they think of luau, they think they're going to get a ton of food and they're going to watch somebody twirl fire and people dance in Hawaiian grass skirts. That's true. But that accompanies the more important element, which is this story. Luau is actually the this tradition, this Hawaiian tradition of telling story through dance and through the spoken word. And you will hear the story of Aulani. You will hear the story of the Ewa Plain and the Waianae Valley, which is where um, around where Aulani is situated, through the story of the luau. So, for me, the food was fine. It was okay. Um, but that wasn't what the draw for me was. I left that night feeling like that was so amazing because the storytelling was absolutely beautiful, and it kind of pieced together like all of this art that you see throughout the resort, even on the outsides of the buildings. There's art on the outside of the buildings, there's art on the inside of the building. The luau pieces together all of those stories that you're seeing through like the different visual art forms into a spoken word, into the dance, into the song. And it was just, for me, it was magnificent. I absolutely loved it and I recommend it. And even though I had one of those rooms overlooking the luau, I'm so glad that I went to it, because you can't really hear the detail of like what they're saying from your balcony. You can hear the music, but it was such a worthwhile experience to do it once. I probably, if I went back, I probably wouldn't do it again because it's not cheap. And again, the food was fine, but I've heard the story. I would much rather than the next time sit on my balcony and be able to, take some tuna nachos from off the hook up to my balcony and watch it. But it's a beautiful story, and you do have Mickey and Minnie join the festivities, which is fun too, and a lot of fun for kids. The kids were all so excited about that.
Well, and to your point, it's a luau that it kind of surrounds you. Like, it's not just you looking at a stage. The dancers are all over the place around all of your tables, so it feels like a very immersive experience where, for example, the luau at the Polynesian Cultural Center on the other side of the island is also very expensive, although it does include admission into the park itself. It's you sitting in bleachers watching the show, from wherever you're sitting on a stage. But it really does immerse you in that story, and anywhere you look, there's something going on. And Amy's right. It is an expensive offering. General seating, I believe, is $170 with kids at around $100, and then preferred seating, which is closer to the main stage, and you get a free photo. I think that's $200 and $119 for kids. So it is an expensive meal, but it's a meal and a show, and I would say it's worth doing once at least.
And there are alcoholic beverages included for adults, so that's not, you don't have to pay on top of that. That being said, it's not like they're coming to your table every 5 minutes to see if you want to drink. So I would say measure your expectations too about what that means, because they pop by your table a couple times and see if you want something else, but it's not like you're gonna drink $200 worth of Mai Tais.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like she says, the food is fine. It's not anything fantastic. It's, you get a salad to start. Well, actually, when we went, it was COVID still, and so we got bento boxes for our meal. They were prepackaged bento boxes. I don't think we paid full
Same for
price
us.
for the luau either. But moving along, let's go back into the lobby for a minute and talk about the shopping that Aulani has to offer. There's not a lot, but what they have, I think, is pretty amazing. We've talked in other episodes about Old Key West and the size of its gift shop. The shop at Aulani is equal in size, I would say, or very close, and it has a nice variety of options, but definitely more Hawaiian in nature. You got Mickey dressed in Hawaiian clothes and Stitch and pins, more pins than I've seen in a hotel resort than I think ever. Like a lot of spirit jerseys, backpacks. I got the only lounge fly as a guy that I own from Aulani. It's amazing the type of stuff that they have.
Yeah, we went into the to that shop almost daily, because there was just so much there. To your point, there was so much merch, and we didn't know what we wanted. There were so many good options to pick from, and we always pick one thing when we go to a new place to commemorate our trip. And we had trouble choosing, because there was a lot of great options, and a lot of Aulani specific stuff, clearly. But they also have all of those characters, those Aulani specific characters.
Yes.
And they sell all of their merch there. So that's just a neat thing also.
Yeah. And this is the store that we're talking about, is the Kalepa store. It's kind of the main general store. And just like any other DVC resort, it also has an area where they have wine and they have some groceries, that you can take up to your villa if you want to cook on property. But then, the standard merch as well. But even better, down the hallway a little ways is Halemanu, which is kind of a higher end store. It's where I got the shirt that I'm wearing, my Tommy Bahama, button up shirt. They had 6 or 8 different styles there. A lot of women's clothing, purses, jewelry, just a lot of, it's kind of more of a boutique type shopping center or shopping area with some really kind of fun ideas.
Yeah.
But
I enjoyed it in there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, outside of Aulani, they're shopping across the street at that marketplace, the ABC store. That's where you get your souvenirs if you don't want to spend a ton of money. It's where you get your Hawaiian chocolates and beach towels and everything for very, very affordable. But then obviously Waikiki is very shopping centric. You've got everything from an ABC store to Gucci and everything in between. So whatever you want, you can find. One thing I want to talk about shopping wise that is kind of off the beaten path and not Aulani directly, but you can go to the Aloha Stadium, the college football stadium, and go to the Aloha Swap Meet. which is not held in the stadium directly. It's actually around the parking lot, around the whole entire circle of the stadium. But you want to talk about a fun experience. It's super cheap. I think it's like $2 to get in per car. You pay each of the vendors for what they're selling, and it's everything under the sun. Fresh fruit, backpacks, 10 t-shirts for $10. We always do all of our souvenir shopping for our kids at the Aloha Swap Meet because you can get everything for like $25. It is such a fun experience for almost no money. You know, $2 to get in, and you can buy anything you want.
Well, that wraps up this episode. We thank you for joining us for this Aulani series, and aloha, and we'll DVC you real soon.
Bye, everyone.